Hello chess friends, this is Sagar Shah, and today I have brought for you some interesting games from the second round of the World Cup 2013. One of the great news for Indian chess fans was that B. Adiban qualified for the third round of the World Cup when he beat Alexander Fier with the black pieces in the second game. This was the position in which Alexander Fier was on the attack with the white pieces. He could have secured a stable advantage if he would have just played knight h6. However, in the game, he couldn't control his attacking streak and he went for bishop h6. Adiban took the piece on f5, and Fier had no other choice but to continue his attack with e into f5. Because if he would have taken the rook on f8, then after f4, Adiban would have captured the bishop on the next move and he would have been clearly better. Hence, Fier took e into f5, but Adiban had seen a nice little intermezzo with rook g8 attacking the white queen. Now white should have just agreed to an inferior position by taking on e5, and after queen e5, rook e5, knight g7, black would have had a better position because he is a piece up, but I think white is still fighting on. In the game, Fier kept the queens with queen h4. However, after knight g7, bishop into g7, knight g7, black was already clearly better because white has absolutely no attacking chances here and he is a piece down. And thus Adiban went on to win the game and has now qualified for round 3. Moving on to the next example. Now we see the game between Gelfand and Filipov. Gelfand is white. He has a wonderful bishop on f3 and a very strong pawn on c6. However, as you see, black has an excellent knight on c5. So, if it was your move over here, what would you play as white? Have a little think. Yes, you are right if you thought that the knight on c5 is good enough for the rook on c2 and you sacrifice the exchange with rook c5. After dc5, Gelfand played a very nice little move, queen e5. Attacking the pawn on e7, black played e6, and after rook c5, queen b8. And I like the way Gelfand handled this position over here by playing not queen into e6, which is also a very strong move, but queen b8, rook b8, c7, and after this rook c8, bishop b7. Black is tied up in ropes and he cannot move at all. Next plan for white is to simply bring the king into the game, which Gelfand did very well after g5, king g2, gf4, gf4, king g6, king f3, king h5, king e3, king g4, and now king d4, king into f4, e3 check, king g4. He took the rook, and after king e5, he is now just simply threatening to bring his king inside, or maybe just take the pawn and bring his king inside, when he would have a clearly winning position. An excellent exchange sacrifice by Gelfand with rook c5, which is very natural for him, but for us we could learn a lot. One of the most crazy game that I have ever seen, and the craziest game of round 2, was the game between Alexander Shimanov, the young Russian, against the experienced Gata Kamsky. In this position, Kamsky as black brought his queen into the attack with queen h4. Shimanov, who is an excellent tactical player, could have just won the game here by playing bishop into f7, rook into f7, knight into f7, king f7, queen b3 check, and after some move like bishop e6, queen into b5, white is clearly winning as his queen is really active. Maybe queen b7 check is threatened, rook into a5 is coming up, and I don't really see what black pieces are doing over here. As things stood, Shimanov over here played queen d3, and Kamsky brought his rook over to h6. Now, still in this position, knight into f7 or bishop into f7 would have won on the spot because of the same things. Queen into b5, like in this position, knight into f7 was very strong, and after rook into f7, queen into b5. Black does not have time to create threats against the white king because of the threat of queen e8 check, and after he retreats queen e7, white just takes the pawn on a5 when he is completely winning. However, Shimanov again missed his opportunity and played a very horrible move, rook to f2. Now I would like you to take maybe 1 minute and try to find a very easy tactic which Kamsky missed. Well, I hope that all of you noticed the move queen into h2. It is one of the most simple mating patterns that you would find in any beginner's book. If king into h2, then after knight g3 check, king g1, rook h1 is a nice little mate. And if Shimanov would not have taken the queen, then after king f1, knight g3 check, king e1, queen g1, rook f1, queen into h2, this game is already over with moves like knight f1 threatened, rook h2. I think it would be a miracle if white could last for another 5 moves. Very surprising that Kamsky missed this move. I think he had quite a lot of time on the clock. I'm not so sure, but he played this horrible move, knight g3, when Shimanov coolly retreated his knight back to f3, defending the h2 pawn and attacking the queen, and after the black queen moved, he simply took on g3 when he was a piece up, and he went on to win the game. Not only won the game, but he equalized the match, and now they go into the rapid play. I'm sure Kamsky will not be able to sleep this night because he missed such an easy tactic. This position is one of my favorites from the positional standpoint. It is Andrekin playing against Guen Goktrongson, and Andrekin, if you are white as Andrekin, can you play like him? Can you make a strong move from white side? Andrekin played a wonderful move in this position. He continued a3. This is an excellent move and a very little pawn move which makes a huge difference in the position. Now if you take the pawn on a3, then after rook a3, you can see how the rook is attacking the weak pawn. His opponent didn't take the pawn and he played b3, when Andrekin played rook c1, attacking the pawn on c4. You can see how he fixed all of these pawns, and now they are all easy targets for the rooks to attack. Now black played bishop a6, trying to cling on to his material. However, white had an excellent move up his sleeve and he played a4. This move looks surprising, but actually it has a very nice tactic to it. The point is, he just wants to play a5 and the rook will have to move off the 6th rank, and then bishop c6 check would be possible when the black king would almost be mated. Hence, his opponent had to go back bishop b7, but after this, rook c4, bg2, king g2, rook c6 defending the c5 pawn, rook d3, f6, ef6, gf6, rook into b3. White was a pawn up, soon won the c5 pawn and easily won the game. I had played the World Junior Championship in 2010 in Poland, and Andrekin had won that tournament, and it was precisely with little moves like a3 he was able to beat very strong opposition as he did in this game. This game between Lagrave and Rd.2 is not so interesting because White is completely winning in this position. However, I would just like to show you a wonderful queen sacrifice that White played. He first played queen f2 attacking the pawn on f7. When Black played the aggressive move f5, I think it was more out of desperation than aggression, and White just took g into f5, and Black thought he was being very clever with the intermediate move bishop h4. Now a lot of moves win for White, but the way Lagrave wins this position is very nice. He plays d6 check to the king, and supposedly Black had prepared an intermediate move bishop e6, and he thought that White cannot play bishop into e6 because of rook e6 when the f2 queen is hanging. But I think Lagrave played an excellent move f into e6, sacrificing the queen, and after bishop f2, rook f into f2, he had a clearly winning position. You can just see his pieces. A wonderful bishop on c4, an excellent knight, two nicely placed rooks, and this bishop is also pretty good. But the main players in this position are the pawns on d6 and e6 which are so very strong, excellent pawns, and he was able to win the game in very few moves. Shirov's opponent in this position, White player Wei Yi, is a I think 13-year-old Chinese player. He must have grown old idolizing Shirov, reading his books Fire on Board, and today he got a chance to play his guru, and he was not at all respectful of his opponent, and he played a very interesting sacrifice with bishop into b5, a into b5, nd b5, and surprisingly Black queen has only one good square to go to, that is b7, as played by Shirov, because if he went to a5, then White has a very strong move in b4. You can look as how a6 and a8 is met with knight c7 check, and there are no other squares for the queen to go to, and so he has to go back queen d8. But after knight d6, bishop d6, queen d6, this is a clear advantageous position for White. So in the game, Shirov played queen b7, but Wei Yi played an excellent move here, queen into d6. Shirov took bishop d6, and after knight d6, king e7, knight into b7, bishop b7, we have a very interesting position, but I think it is clearly better for White because of these three strong passed pawns. If you don't believe me, then I would like you to see the last position of this game and confirm for yourself. The last position looked something like this, and this is how the game between Shirov and Wei Yi ended. The three passed pawns which I was showing you reached almost the queening squares, and Shirov had nothing better but to resign the game. A wonderful effort by the 13-year-old Chinese player who knocked out Shirov from the World Cup. The last game which I would like to show you today is one of my favorites. It's between Felger Ruben, who is white, and Alexander Areshenko, who is black. Areshenko is known to a lot of Indian players because he has played in India many times. He is not a very famous player like other top 2700 players, but he has amazing strength, and in this game he shows his strength to simply blow off his opponent with really energetic moves. He's black. The material is black is a pawn up. However, it's a wild position. Areshenko played b3, and after queen into b3, he played bishop a6, attacking the c4 pawn. And white player now played rook f4, attacking the bishop on h4. And from here on, the fireworks began. Bishop into c4 was taken by Areshenko, and white took the bishop. But now black made another intermediate move with rook a b8, bringing in another piece into the attack. And after queen c2, black took knight c4, rook c4, and here rook e3 would have been a strong move, but Areshenko wanted it to be pretty clear. He took bishop g3, rook bishop g3, and rook e3, attacking the bishop on g3. White came back with rook g4. Okay, bishop g4 was one possibility, but then after rook e b3, the b2 pawn is hanging. So in the game he went rook g4, but after queen f6, there is no good way to defend the b2 pawn, and in this position you can just see how a rook is more powerful than the two bishops who are doing absolutely nothing. The combined power of the e3 rook, f6 queen, and the b8 rook is enough to mate the white king in a few moves. After king g1, rook takes b2, queen c1, rook b3, king h2. Areshenko now finished off the game with rook e2 check, king g1, and rook takes g3. Rook takes g3, queen d4, and after king h1, queen e4, white had nothing better but to resign, as rook e1 check would win the queen. A wonderful, aggressive, and a very nice effort by Areshenko, who played so energetically each and every move, starting from b3, bishop a6, bishop into c4, rook b8. Wonderful play by black. So the second round of the World Cup turned out to be very interesting with so many tactical games. I hope that I will be able to bring more such games for you in the rounds to come, and hope that Adiban keeps moving forward and goes further into the tournament. Hopefully, hope to see you soon. See you. Bye bye.